Hi, everybody. So people are popping in as we're talking about reading. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Good to have you guys.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. Where are you at?
West
On the
Coast.
West Coast.
It's
Yeah.
morning here too.
Gotcha.
It's always morning somewhere.
Always morning somewhere. That's true. Always morning. It's always 5 o'clock somewhere.
Well, it's lunchtime here.
Oh, it's lunchtime there. Yes. I had lunch. It's new. It's early afternoon here. No, but we were definitely talking about reading ahead, and I think it's such a great topic to do, especially if you are trying to reduce your mistakes. And I also think if you're trying to get a feel for pacing and timing, right? Nothing's worse than making, messing up a word every other sentence, and you have to stop, or you're clicking whatever you're using, whether it's a dog click or a clap or whatever you want to do, or a little cha-cha dance, or you're doing a modified punch and roll, whatever it is that you're working with. It's very you can't really get a feel for the piece if you're constantly stopping.
Oh, yeah.
So, that is something. And it's interesting. I don't know. Many of the people I've seen out there teaching and things, actually, that's not usually taught.
I tried looking for that.
Well, from a standpoint, right? Because I think people, people don't, how am I, are we going to take time to work on reading? But the reality is I think that's half of the battle with what we do.
I teach that in my class.
Yes, you do.
No, it's not called reading ahead necessarily, but it's breathing.
That
And
I need help with too.
I think it really helps. And I mean, I can tell you in like a minute, in 60 seconds, how to do it if you'll let me.
Of course. Well, yeah.
Okay. Will you allow me to share my screen?
Yes, are you not allowed to share your screen?
No, it's been disabled.
Now you're allowed to share your screen.
Okay. So I've got this honkin' e-learning thing. Child safety is everybody's business, because it is. So if I were to go through here and read, as you can see, this is super exciting information. So what I do is at the beginning of every single sentence, I just take a really slow inhalation on the vowel of the first sound. So like SOS, the vowel sound is eh. So I just make my mouth in the shape of an eh, inhale slowly, and then that gives me time to just sort of like read ahead while I'm just inhaling slowly. And I do that every single time on every single sentence. And it seems like it would really slow you down, but it actually doesn't, because you have this nice pacing, talk. And then at the end of the sentence, you've got this nice sort of break where the listener can kind of like take what I've just said. And I do that for every single sentence. It works great. And
can you give us an example?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. SOS Children's Villages is committed to preventing child abuse and neglect, and to responding quickly and appropriately when a concern arises.
I didn't even hear you breathe in that.
This policy support document's main goal is to ensure appropriate responses and effective management of child safeguarding, CS, concerns at program and national level. I don't need to breathe. You take a nice slow inhalation on that vowel. And I actually did, I breathed on right before the and. I just did a tiny little breath right before the and. But if you do that, and like, I haven't read this before, this is a client just sent this to me. So if you do that trick, I absolutely work. And people in my class always say, oh, that's a game changer. It's helped so much. And it really does. It's just, and it's kind of a musical trick of like, you come to a new phrase in a song and you breathe on that vowel and then sing it. But it works with speaking too.
Okay, so basically slow inhalation on the vowel sound of the first word at the beginning of the sentence, and go.
Right. And as you're inhaling, you can look ahead. You can look ahead into the sentence.
Okay.
And sort of see where to go. Yeah. I mean, I didn't practice that at all. It was, I've done a lot of e-learning, but That's,
Yeah, I
that's it.
think that's why I think reading out loud skills is, I think, what it should be appropriately called.
Yeah.
Right? I do think that is something that we all, no matter whether it's short or long, we're talking about audiobook auditioning today, of course, but whether it's short or long, it is a very important skill for us to continue to work on, because as all of us grow our businesses, time will become, and it is now anyways for all of us, but time, it's interesting. You will have no time when you're working your full-time job and you're trying to do work. Then you will go full-time and you'll get time, but then you'll realize you have less time again because you have more work. And then you realize there is no more time. So the only way to get more time is for us to be faster at what we do. That's something that, yeah. So thank you guys so much. We got kind of in a conversation going. It was a great conversation before we started, but don't be sorry at all. Welcome. And we might as well, it's 2:02. We'll kick off as people come in. It is great to have everybody to our audiobook audition workshop put on by Avio's Journey Elite Academy. And if you are not a part of the Academy, that's okay. I paused there for dramatic effect. That is okay. We love you anyways. There's some incredible things going on there, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this audiobook audition workshop, because we've launched, our audiobook production company, which we've had 4 different stories published so far, and we're thrilled to be doing this workshop amongst many others. But thank you definitely for joining us today. And our goal today is to talk about the previous auditions for this past set of books. We usually do 4 stories, books at a time for the month. And, we do auditions for that. We choose them as for people just in the Academy. And, we go over them, and hopefully Susan and Angela, which I'll have them just, introduce themselves real briefly. We work on choosing them and publishing them, and we're going to give feedback today on them and try to give you some tips and tricks on how you can win some more auditions yourself, and then take questions. So ladies, why don't you go, Susan? Why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit, say what you do, who you is.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Susan Fouché, and I have the best job in the whole wide world. I'm a voice actor. So I can be a million different people all week long. It's actually the most wonderful job, really, ever. So fulfilling. I'm also a teacher at Avio's Journey Academy, which has actually been like one of the highlights of my career, is seeing other people move forward in their career and win auditions and make money. And that's been really cool, and quit their job and, quit their like full-time job, whatever, and get into voiceover and do what they love. That's been amazing. So I teach a voice acting class, and like most of what I narrate at today, like August 2022, is e-learning. I do a lot of e-learning, but I started out with audiobooks. And I thought when I started, I was going to win an Audi. It was going to be my life. I just was going to love it. And then I kind of like started doing e-learning, and I was like, oh, I'm making a little bit more money, and this is kind of nice. And so I still do audiobooks every now and again when people ask me to do them, but I don't really ever audition for them. I've just transitioned into e-learning and explainer videos and some ads, some meditation, but mostly e-learning. And I am so happy that you're here, and I hope that you learn a lot about auditioning, because auditioning is a piece of the puzzle that is a big piece. And if you don't get it, then you're not going to get any work, especially in the beginning before you can get, repeat clients. So, I know our goal is that you learn, be sure and take notes, because we're going to give a lot of information about how to improve your chances for winning auditions, not just for us, but for everybody. The audition kind of like rules that we're going to teach you are, they're for everything, every audition that you're ever going to do. This applies for. So anyway, glad you're here. And Angela, I'll turn it over to you.
No, thank you. And real quick for Susan, she's also she also curates and manages basically our audiobook division. We've got a division.
Oh,
gonna
I'm
make
head of a division, huh?
You're head of a division too.
Got the window office here.
Yes, that would be a problem. For the audiobook, our audiobook production company for the Avio's journey. All right, Angela, you're up.
I don't know how I can follow all of that, but
Oh, nonsense. It's amazing too.
I'm Angela Olfest. I'm also a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator,
Yay.
coach in my own right, and also here on Avio's Journey Elite Academy. I seeing all these faces, I miss most of these faces. How you guys all doing? Yay!
Yeah.
I've been a voice actor for about 4 years now, and about 4 years since I met you, Anthony, roughly about 4 years.
Okay.
And full-time for the last 2. I also specialize in long form, mainly e-learning, meditations, audiobooks, commercials here and there, video games here and there. I do a lot of AI because I just sound like one apparently. But audiobooks is pretty much
Don't
my
we
game.
all?
So
Apparently, that to
yeah.
someone we all sound like AI.
That is very true. And I think it's even more so now with all of the AI voiceovers that are available on TikTok, Instagrams, everywhere where there's an AI voice available, they just say, you sound like you're on TikTok. I see, I'm getting derailed already. See, we're like 2 minutes into my conversation.
Angela, that brings an interesting point though. So to tag on to that, I do think that AI sounding voice will actually become, and it already is, but people will actually want that sounding voice, and they'll hire us.
And I do. I get hired a lot for an AI voice to sound like a computer, which is weird. But then at the same time, when I'm not trying to sound like that, you sound mechanical. Sorry, bro. It's my voice. I can't help it. But anywho, welcome to everybody. I'm excited to be here and excited to talk about the auditions.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is wonderful. I've had the honor of working and continuing to work in different capacities with Susan and Angela, and both incredible, intelligent voice actors. So it's great to have them here. All right, so today what we want to do is we want to go over we're going to play these auditions that we've chosen for our last 4 books, stories that we've done, and we kind of want to go through each one of them and give you some tips, point out some things that these people are doing or did, talk to you about why we like it, things that we notice some people doing, et cetera, and just kind of go from there to hopefully help you get some more callbacks and actually get some work. So with that being said, this last time around, the 4 books or stories that we're our production company, and we're kind of this is an interesting thing that we're doing with our production company, is that we are focusing on public domain books so that we can own the right to those books, right? And then hopefully the narrators, because I don't know about you guys, but I love an author just as much as the next person. But let's be honest, if you've done this at all, which you all hear, so you must have, sometimes it's got to chap your ass when they get all the stuff, and we get either a little bit, even if we're paid, that's nice, but part of me is like, it would be really cool if we had the ownership as the narrators, right? So I think, anyways, that's kind of where this production company was born for, and also to thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Oh gosh, Robert's gonna be that one. All right, so anyways, so now I see I can't talk. I got to move ahead. Thanks, Robert. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and pull up our first one. But again, like I was saying, though, is that I do think this is something really special that we're going to do, because we're also going to be moving into audio dramas. Now, this is not these next 4 stories, which right now we're focusing on the Grimm's fairy tales. These next 4 stories, or these 4 stories we're going to go over, are not audio dramas, but our next book is an audio drama that we're going to be doing. So, and it is from Grimm's Fairy Tales. So we'll be having multiple voice actors be a part of that. And I think that's going to be something really exciting. And I'm actually in talks with an agreement and a contract with another a publishing company for another book. So lots of fun, whole different world, you guys, on the other side. I do recommend you always learn about this stuff because it kind of gives us peek behind the curtain about what other people go through. So we understand, because no matter who it is, they want their money. Okay. So let me see here. All right. So this is Adobe Audition. And this first person, we're doing a Little Red Riding Hood. This is Kyle Snyder's audition. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this. Make sure my, let's see, share computer sound. All right, here we go. Let's listen.
Kyle Snyder, Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother. And there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once, she gave her a little cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else. So she was always called Little Red Cap. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly, and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will take great care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand on it. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Cap entered the wood, a wolf met her. Red Cap did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Cap," said he. "Thank you kindly, Wolf." "Whither away so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's."
All right, awesome. So we're gonna dive and there's a lot of things to digest real quick. I think Susan, do you have something to show?
I
So,
do.
Yeah, Susan's going to show you something that kind of goes over what we look for and kind of 3 different categories. So Susan, kind of run over this and we're going to then tie it into, I might have jumped the gun on, I just wanted to play Kyle's. I'm sorry.
No, it's good that we got to listen to it because I think it's like fresh in our minds. Really good. Okay, so the first thing that we look for is the technical production quality. So it needs to meet those ACX specs. And that is, of course, an RMS level, volume level being right around -20, in between -18 and -23, peak levels no higher than -3, and your noise floor no louder than -60. So the ACX specs are really important. And if you need to find those ACX specs, just go to acx.com. And you can look those up, type in the help section submission requirements, or just Google ACX submission specs, submission requirements. It'll give you all those. If you're new to voiceover, just put it on a little sticky note, stick it in your studio so that you know. We also expect professional sound quality, like no mouth noise, pops, clicks, the vacuum cleaner running, the dog barking, whatever. And some level of mastering or EQ. Now, you may be looking at this if you're a total beginner and going like, I have no idea how to do mastering or EQ or anything like that. That's okay. There are ways to learn about that. YouTube videos are great, but also a VO's journey, like we teach you that in this here as well. So technical production quality, if we want to look at Kyle's, his was really clean audio. You all heard it. It was really clean. The volume was perfect, right on. From the very beginning, for example, Kyle slated his name, and that was in the directions. And it was just this lovely slate, waited a beat, you know, went in through the script and read the whole thing. So,
So
you know, yeah, Kyle's production from that aspect was excellent. We also look at acting quality and storytelling quality. If I don't know, Anthony, if we want to
yeah,
touch
we're
upon those with
talk
a
about
different one.
Well, no, we're gonna go over Kyle's and also and go through this and but I do think I wanted to show I'm glad you showed everybody this because I think it's very valuable for a lot of reasons. One of the bigger reasons too, I think, is I've been talking about this in the last couple of classes in the academy, is remember everybody, we have to nowadays, unless you have some mass budget that the producers are putting down, we direct ourselves. We are the directors. You are not just the actor, you're the director, which means that you have to also be aware of these things from the director's hat.
And you're the engineer.
And you're the engineer in most parts. Now, you can always pay an engineer, and you might be doing that. But for the most part, you're still going to be required to at least have audio that's good enough for if you were paying someone for an engineer to be able to work on. But I recommend you take a screenshot of this or something so that we can move away from it. But make sure you get that. Angela, when looking at these things, what are your thoughts about, you know, when you're doing work and so forth?
What am I thought about the specs or about
Yeah, well, we're gonna
Kyle's
get to
performance?
we're gonna get to Kyle. Why don't we start with that? Why don't we go ahead and what are your thoughts while you're listening? You know, while we listen to Kyle's.
You know what it reminded me of was like a Scott Brick sort of a performance.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of variation in the modulation he took. I was completely lost and engrossed in the story. I think his pacing was perfect. I think one of the things that we typically fall into when we first start audiobook narrating is that we sort of fall into a rhythm that doesn't seem to change. Like the sentence sort of goes la 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 la. Like you're just reading sentence after sentence after sentence. This was very cohesive. There was a lot of variation in, like I said, modulation, and I really thought this was just fabulous. It was very clean. Like Susan said, no mouth noise, no nose farts, none of the things that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it's
thought it was
interesting.
wonderful.
Robert put down there, he thought the recording was really metallic. I will say one thing, guys, coming through Zoom, you
Mhm.
never know what's going to come out on your
Yeah.
end. So, you know, it might not sound, you know, as well as it does from my end, but it really, no, I will say from my end, what I did here, some of the processing was definitely, he had a little too much on the high end and could have probably targeted a little bit more of the sibilance on some places. But you know, that's something that is, if you work with you, it's easy to address. But I thought, and I wanted to ask Angela and Susan on this too, because we talk a lot about pacing, the importance of storytelling, but also maintaining that story. And I like to call it, and I want to talk to you guys about this, and that is suspension of disbelief. I've brought it up a couple of times. It's a term in the theater that we use when we talk about we bring people on a journey, and by our performance, we help them suspend their disbelief that this is fake, right? That this is just a performance. All right. We are hoping that they get carried away in the story and they can, you know, get lost in their imagination with us. All right. If we do our job correctly, they are able to suspend disbelief and go on the journey with us. If we do our job poorly, they're constantly being ripped away from that suspension of disbelief, and it becomes very choppy. It becomes very hard for them to breathe, actually. All right. And just enjoy the story. So I wanted to, you know, so when we talk about pacing and tempo, all of these things go within this idea of trying to get the listener just to suspend their disbelief. And it can be very difficult to teach someone what is like, how do you get the correct tempo? What is the correct pacing? Right? Like, that's a hard thing. Like, it's like, could we narrow it down to beats per second? Could we do something like that? Like, if you're a logical thinker, sure, you could, right? I don't know if you ever studied any certain types of music or something, but there's different beats and styles or speeds of music that go with our heart rhythm and things like that. But I wanted to get kind of Susan's take too on this, and Angela's take on, when you talk about pacing and tempo, how do we say to you, like, how do I say to, I'm just looking at someone, how do I say to Bill, who's in the middle of my screen, Bill, I want you to have, which we know this would be what we would be told to us, good pacing. Like, what does good pacing mean? Or, I want you to tell me this story in a manner that I don't feel rushed, but it's not too slow, right? Because one of the things that I love most about really good narrators is that their pacing is it's nice. It's so easy to listen to the story they're telling. The story doesn't feel pushed, but it doesn't feel slow. So that is a challenge, I think, for any coach or any voice actor to easily define. All right. We were talking about reading skills, but let me open it up to Susan and then Angela and give me your thoughts about that.
So I think one of you can't really get the correct pacing down if you don't understand the story. And so a lot of, audiobooks, especially for fiction and especially for Grimm's fairy tale, where it's kind of just an over the top sort of ridiculous piece to it, is that you've got to kind of understand, like, where are we going in the story? Sort of the big picture of the story, what's happening, as we're going, breaking down the story piece by piece, but also breaking down sentences by what is it, parts, or what am I trying to say, breaking up the sentences into specific parts, and we can do that by really just analyzing the structure of the sentence, by where the commas are, by where the ands are. It really is just kind of, I think, storytelling, just really kind of breaking down the story and on an analytical kind of way, so that we can easily tell it. And I think the more you get into audiobooks, the easier it is to see that, to see where the phrases go.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. What do you think, Angela?
I think before you start any book, you really need to be in the right frame of mind. You can't go into narrating an audiobook wanting to rush through it. You have to be relaxed. You have to understand the story, like Susan said, understand what is happening, who is talking, what is going on in the scene, understanding the story as a whole. And then just doing a little woo-saw if you have to, take a deep breath, and just read it as if you were reading to someone else in the room. And that could be, and I always say that my brain, I read super fast when I'm reading for my own personal enjoyment. I read super fast. So when I'm narrating out loud, and of course, again, the written word is a completely different animal than the spoken word, even in the same text. So you really need to be in the right frame of mind and just slow down. I'm not saying read every word at this sort of pace. I'm saying just read it normally. Imagine someone else is in the room with you and you're just narrating the story at a comfortable pace. Give yourself nice pauses at your commas, even if there is no comma and there needs to be one there for emphasis, add a pause there. You can always adjust your pacing, the spaces between the words and sentences in post if you have to, but having the right mindset and just feeling calm and comfortable in your understanding of the story and in your own, the way that you're sitting, your posture, you're just comfortable, and just tell the story. Again, if there's too much of pause, or the paces, and again, I guess with that, you don't want the pauses to be completely all the same length either. If you are a logical thinker, you don't want to go in and paste in a half a second, you know what I mean, to make everything perfectly paced throughout the whole thing, because then it just sounds odd. Just it doesn't have to be black or white. What
Right.
feels comfortable to you, and it carries the story along, and maybe pick up the pace slightly a little bit more in the dramatic spots, again, that goes with knowing what's going on with the story. But I think being just comfortable has a lot to do with it too, with pacing and being able to follow along.
Mhm.
It's
That's a
not
good
too
point.
fast, too slow. It's just, you're telling me a story.
And it seems so easy too. Like, well, duh, of course I know what's going on in Little Red Riding Hood and I know the characters. But honestly, you'd be surprised how easy it is to space out, as you're reading along. So staying engaged, staying in that kind of like confident, calm mindset can be difficult, and it can be really tiring too. So I think also like taking breaks is important also.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I have two things I want to add to that, you guys. One, listen. Here's some ridiculous Anthony tips. One, for God's sakes, go to Audible, listen to other narrators. It's free, 5 minutes of every single book in there. Listen to narrators from the mystery genre, from sci-fi, from all these different people. Listen to what they're doing. And here's another little tip: if you can, go to Amazon, find the book that they're narrating. They usually narrate the first introduction or first chapter, and it's usually available. Read along while they narrate. You can usually do this for free, and this will give you, especially someone you enjoy, watch what they're doing. What you'll start to notice, especially really good narrators, is that, like Angela touched on this, punctuation is a grammatic must, right? We understand that we have to write a certain way to be grammatically correct, but we do not speak that way, which means that written word, just like Angela mentioned, was not really spoken word. So that means a lot of times you might need to break the rule and keep reading after there, or where there is a period in the middle, because the thought continues with your narration. You might need to break the rule of a comma to take a breath, or you might need to, in the middle of a sentence where there is nothing, make a pause because it was an important moment. Okay, that is, and then you'd be like, well, how do I know that? Honestly, that comes with a lot of practice, time. You're not going to get it overnight, so give yourself a break. Seriously, you're not. Second thing, I love doing this, so I want to share it with you. These are, no matter what anyone tells you, characters. And I'm not talking about just the girl in Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf. I'm talking about the narrator. The narrator is a character. And I was looking at trying to narrate a book like Orson Welles the other night, just because, why not? And I thought, I was doing some research on Orson Welles and like a lot of kind of at 1984, all the kind of really crazy stuff, right? And then I was looking at the Transatlantic Accent, and so these things like this. And interestingly enough, I think someone mentioned over this in chat, I recommend that you play around, get a character, and narrate something, a few paragraphs as a character, as someone, with a different accent. And you will automatically start to see, like, why can I do that? And it sounds so much better to me than when I do it as my regular voice. Does anybody here experience that?
Mhm.
If you ever do that or try, even if your accent sucks, at least it seems better. Well, why is that? Well, it's because, one, you're focusing on something completely different. Our focus really matters. But two, you are more concerned about the character than you are about whether you're going to get the pacing or the commas or the pauses or everything right. You're more focused on the fun aspect of this character and sharing a story. You have to look at that from yourself in the same way. Do you ever notice a lot of stories too have that radio sound still? Like sometimes I'll listen to audiobooks and I'm like, did they record this in the 50s or the 40s or the 30s, right? But they do it on purpose. A lot of that has to do too with the feel that they're trying to get. Don't forget, this is a story that we're supposed to also get a feel from the production. So that's where the director comes in. I want to go and do some more with some other of these reads, but I think this is a great discussion for the acting component as well, because you need to be able to play around. And look, what if you are better at doing a British accent while you narrate than you are that you feel than doing your own accent? For God's sakes, do the British accent. Why not? Maybe you're good at, you know, an Australian accent, or maybe you're good at Slovakian accent. I don't know, whatever. Maybe you're good at being a goofball. Well, you know what? Narrate as a goofball. Get yourself out there. I come from my acting teacher was a different, like, where there's the acting teachers who are like, we're going to study for hours and years until you are ready to take the first step. The guy I worked with was, get your ass up there and start acting. All right. And I told a story, right, about Dustin Hoffman the other day in class, and Laurence Olivier, right, on the set of Tootsie. And Dustin Hoffman was sitting there, and, you know, and he was disheveled, and Olivier comes up to him and says, good Lord, Dustin, what in the world, what's wrong with you? You look like crap. And he's like, well, I've been really working hard and studying this part. And, you know, last week I've been out living on the street, you know what I mean? To really get, you know, into the role, you know, and famously Olivier said, right, well, why don't you just try acting? So I think, you know, that is, there's two, right? There's two competing things there, right? There's a method, and then there's just getting up there. For us, we kind of unfortunately have to look towards that latter, because we don't have time to spend a week mulling over our thoughts and feelings about this book. Okay. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the next one. Couple of things about that just to get back to it. Remember what a slate is. For those of you who don't know what a slate is, it is this first part where you say your name. All right. Here.
Kyle Snyder.
All right.
Little Red Riding Hood.
So that's what we call a slate, where you give your name and what you are narrating. Okay. For us, I'm just going to tell you, and some of the Academy members are here today. Susan, no, because Susan and I'm like, but come on. Anyways, we won't get into our private conversations, but the reality is, if you do not slate, we do not choose you. And unfortunately, there were some people who did not slate correctly. So they unfortunately did not get chosen. And the reason for that is because you need to know that people are going to be listening to lots. And we want to know people can follow directions. And we want to know people are doing what they're told to do, because if they don't, right, how do I know if I ask you to do something, you're not going to do that on somewhere else? Simple stuff like that can be the difference between you getting a job or not. You might have been the best one there, but if you didn't do it right, you might not even got past the slate. All right. And remember, a slate doesn't mean you add stuff.
Little Red Riding Hood.
Like if he said Little Red Riding Hood audition, don't add the audition, for the love of Pete.
And wait, can I just show the audition really fast? I'll just take 2 seconds.
Oh God. Okay.
Please. I'm just going to show it. Here is the audition for Little Red Riding Hood. Here is the actual text. The only thing that's highlighted in yellow is, please name your audition file your last name _audition _fairytale name.mp3. This is actually really important too, because when you start auditioning for agencies and things like that, they'll say there's a specific way you name it. And if you don't name it the right way, they don't even listen to it.
The file name, right? The
file name, exactly. The file name. And then I have, please slate your name only at the beginning. And so Kyle did that. Kyle Snyder. And then he read Little Red Cap or Little Red Riding Hood. It just go right into it. So it is about following directions. Mm-hmm. And just be sure and do that, because, you know, we get a lot of really great auditions, and sometimes it ends up being almost like a process of elimination of like, they did such a good job, but got to follow directions. And this isn't just for us because we're being nitpicky, but just because when you guys get to a point where you're where you are represented, at an agency, well, they're not even going to represent you if you can't follow directions.
Right.
So you have to be able to, read the directions, follow them. It's not that hard.
All right, let's pray to God. I remember we did pick everybody that followed directions. Wouldn't that be something? All right, here we go.
Fiona Spreadborough, Rumpelstiltskin. By the side of a wood, in a country a long way off, ran a fine stream of water, and upon the stream there stood a mill. The miller's house was close by, and the miller, you may know, had a very beautiful daughter. She was, moreover, very shrewd and clever, and the miller was so proud of her that he one day told the king of the land, who used to come and hunt in the wood, that his daughter could spin gold out of straw. Now, this king was very fond of money, and when he heard the miller's boast, his greediness was raised, and he sent for the girl to be brought before him. Then he led her to a chamber in his palace, where there was a great heap of straw, and gave her a spinning wheel and said, "All this must be spun into gold before morning, if you love your life." It was in vain that the poor maiden said that it was only a silly boast of her father, for that she could do no such thing as spin straw into gold. The chamber door was locked, and she was left alone. She sat down in one corner of the room, and began to bewail her hard fate, when on a sudden the door opened, and a droll-looking little man hobbled in, and said, "Good morrow to you, my good lass. What are you weeping for?" "Oh, lass," she said, "I must spin the straw into gold, and I know not how." "What will you give me?" said the hobgoblin. "For you." "My necklace," replied the maiden. He took her at her word, and sat himself down to the wheel, and whistled and sang, round about, lo and behold, reel away, straw into gold." And round about the wheel went merrily. The work was quickly done, and the straw was all spun into gold.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. I think Fiona's here too. Good job, Fiona. That was a lot of fun. So starting off, of course, she slated it correctly. So that's a win. Now I'm going to give so first off, I love the energy, the excitement in this. It works with this story too. That's another thing, you guys. Not every story, fiction, nonfiction, tall tale, fairy tale, mystery, sci-fi, whatever, romance, they all have different feels to them. And our job as a narrator is to create that feeling. I really like this piece from Fiona because it created a really unique feeling for me while listening to this. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Now, I do have some critiques also for her, but I do think that overall, I really did enjoy this piece. What are your thoughts? And I'll get to the critiques after, but Susan, Angela?
I thought it was great. And hang on, I'm going to share that little PDF thing.
Probably like, good Lord, they're getting their eyes.
No, just hang on. Okay, so
sharing back and forth, but hey,
yeah,
we're pretty good.
sorry, it's like
we've done this before.
We don't know what we're doing. Okay,
yeah.
So
no, we do.
This last piece. Well, okay, so the middle part, the acting quality. Number one, distinct voices. It was just really cool. And I don't know. I didn't really know what the word droll meant. DROLL. There was a droll little man who walked in. It was Rumpelstiltskin. And I looked up the word droll and I was like, I actually didn't know what it meant, but it means like unique and just strange thing. And I just thought, man, the way Fiona read Rumpelstiltskin, it was like, it just fit the word droll so well. She also, in terms of the storytelling quality, she brought the story to life with the singing, reel away. You can just imagine this little weird guy at a spinning wheel doing this. It just really brought it to life, distinct characters. I thought she did great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Angela?
Performance-wise, that was just fabulous. She really took some chances. I really loved the singing. I loved the distinct voices. I really loved the way she carries you through the entire story with so much energy and enthusiasm. And I think I can imagine kids just being sucked immediately right into listening to that, or anybody for that matter. But like you said, the things that stand out to me in my neuroses are some of the technical aspects, which I assume you're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there are a few little things here. Now, I did want to point out something to you guys about the acting, because I don't know if you realize this too, but like me, as the director as well too, right around this section, right, is where I think she really gets her wings. Right towards about latter half, like you really, and that's because the action in the story, the action of the words, all right, we go from basically anecdotal information to action. And when the action happens, the pacing that she has and the energy really goes well together. So we are then full along. I no longer feel pushed. I feel like she's actually, doing a good job of leading me through. Up front here, when there's more, when we were the other night in the academy, we were going over literally, the pyramid, what is it? The plot, your story plot, right? Your story diagram and exposition and to inciting incident, right? And rising action, understanding the different parts of a story, right? And how they're told will help you know when you need to go at a medium pace, a faster pace, a slower pace. So I think in the beginning, right? And since then, Fiona and I were on the same page about all this stuff too, but that's why I might have been a little pushed in the beginning. I think I would have slowed down, give a little bit more pausing in the beginning. But as we hit the action, man, it's on fire. It's great. Okay. Also, there's some things I think that we can talk about when you are processing your work. This happens to a lot of us. We are trying to make sure our background noise is not an issue. Their sibilance is not an issue. And if we sometimes can over process, right, some things might happen to our audio. And there was a few little pieces in here. I think that there might have been some over processing where we heard some things like that happen, where you could tell some lower frequencies had to be taken out, probably because there might have been pops or something. And, so I think people, and remember too, casting directors, we're aware of these things too, because especially we all do this work. So I understand. And since I've worked with so much people and I've done so much myself now, the more we do this, the more we can hear and we probably understand what someone did. But I would say that that's just some things that I would, I recommend to, that I recommended to Fiona, and she knows. But if you were listening along, you might be like, wow, this second part was really like I was able to drop any, I guess, issues I was having with things and just follow along real nicely. And it was great because then I was like, ooh, cool, what's next? This first part, I was kind of like, it was going a little too fast.
And Fiona fixed it though. I mean, we always reserve the right to ask for a director session, which,
that's why following directions is so important, because then we know that you can follow directions, right? We know if we ask you to do something, you'll do it.
Yes. And I just want to say the end result, because Fiona sent me the whole thing. And oh my gosh, at the end, if y'all remember Rumpelstiltskin, the princess has to guess his name. And it is so hilarious when she guesses his name. Nicholas? No. Peas bottom? No. It's perfect. It's beautiful. So any of the issues that you may have heard in here are completely fixed. And we do reserve the right to ask for a director session. And
yes,
that happened, which is fine.
Yes. Good deal. So thank you so much, Fiona. Really awesome job. Really did enjoy it. And it's one of my favorite stories too. All right. So moving on to this story, Cat Skin. Yes, we did Cat Skin. And so, Brian, this was Brian Peterson. Let's see if he started out with the right.
Brian
Peterson,
He did.
Catskin.
All right.
There,
By the way, on a side note, and Fiona didn't necessarily do this with hers, but Kyle did and Peter did. It is really good, you guys, to leave a little pause here. I think this is about even a you know, what is this, what is it, a little under a tenth of a second or something like that, but leave a little pause, all right, in between this, especially, by the way, on your demo. On a side note, your audiobook demo should have at least 3 spots on it, and one should be, by the way, here's a little just random tip, one should be first person, one should be third person, one should be dialogue. Those spots should be at least 20 to 25 seconds, but each one should be slated. Okay. But there should be, the reason why I'm talking about this, there should be pauses enough for me to let my brain reset. All right. Let my brain reset. It's not like commercial work where we don't have time for the pauses. But in these books, we've got time. So we need to make sure we pause. Okay. Sorry.
there once was a king whose queen had hair of the purest gold and was so beautiful that her match was not to be met with on the whole face of the earth. But this beautiful queen fell ill. When she felt that her end drew near, she called the king to her and said, "Promise me that you will never marry again, unless you meet with a wife who is as beautiful as I am, and who has golden hair like mine." Then, when the king in his grief promised all she asked, she shut her eyes and died. But the king was not to be comforted, and for a long time never thought of taking another wife.
I'm sorry, I love about fairy tales, when someone dies, they're like, and they died. It's so great. They're dead. They're out of the story.
At last, however, his wise men said, "This will not do. The king must marry again, that we may have a queen." So messengers were sent far and wide to seek for a bride as beautiful as the late queen. But there was no princess in the world so beautiful. And if there had been, still there was not one to be found who had golden hair. So the messengers came home and had had all their trouble for nothing. Now the king had a daughter who was just as beautiful as her mother and had the same golden hair. And when she was grown up, the king looked at her and saw that she was just like this late queen. Then he said to his courtiers, "May I not marry my daughter? She is the very image of my dead wife. Unless I have her, I shall not find any bride upon the whole earth. And you say there must be a queen." When the courtiers heard this, they were shocked and said, "Heaven forbid that a father should marry his daughter. Out of so great a sin, no good can come." And his daughter was also shocked, but hoped the king would soon give up such thoughts. So she said to him, "Before I marry anyone, I must have 3 dresses. One must be of gold like the sun. Another must be of shining silver like the moon. And a third must be dazzling as the stars. Besides this, I want a mantle of 1,000 different kinds of fur put together, to which every beast in the kingdom must give a part of his skin." And thus she thought he would think of the matter no more.
Okay. So, first off, Brian, I thought did a great job. There's a lot of things to talk about in this one. The story itself, of course, this is a story that comes from Grimm's fairy tales. We did debate amongst ourselves whether or not we should do this story, but it doesn't really go like beyond this. The whole point of this, it doesn't go into like depth of like bad things. But I do think that it is definitely a weird story. But anywho, I did want to talk about the audition. I thought it did really good. I really like Brian's voice, the feel of it. Again, again, and I want to bring this up to you all. If you noticed, and this is something as a narrator, I'm hoping you guys pick up on these trends. When the action, probably right around here, especially when the king, after the exposition, we got into the action. All right. Even though probably most of us, all of us were disgusted a little bit by what was going on, at least we were into the story because there was action happening and and Brian was driving the action. And you'll actually notice if you notice here, the pauses actually, even though some of them are still there, the pauses actually become less than they are here. All right. But the action, so Brian was aware, yet the pacing here still to me was a little bit off until we get to here where the action kicked on. My thought, the reason why maybe it was a little bit off is because the exposition is a challenging thing because it is somewhat anecdotal. So in some senses, I'm not telling you to read fast, but it's not meant to be as poignant as the action. So that's just something but otherwise, I thought it was very good. And what I really like about Brian too, is that he does use decent pauses. And if you notice those pauses, that's not an issue. I don't know if it's an American thing, maybe, but I'm doing it now. I feel like I got to talk so fast that I can't breathe, or you're going to, or you're just going to run away. I can't pause ever for effect. We can pause. We can leave room. Susan and Angela, what do you think?
Personally, I like the fact that he left a little bit of pause before and after dialogue, because that gives you a little bit of time to, like you said earlier, to reset, to make sure that you're following along with the right person. And then also with the dialogue, it seemed to me that it was a little bit faster paced in the read itself, but he still kept the pauses for the most part consistent throughout the whole thing, which I liked. And also what caught my attention was his differentiation of the characters' voices. They were not over the top. They were very subtle, but effective. You still could determine who was talking at any given point, but without it being super high pitched for the females or, it was very subtle. And I thought this was great.
Yeah. Same. This was a difficult story to go through because it was so weird. But I felt like Brian really treated it with respect, and
that's a really good point, Susan.
Yeah,
and he just did it,
Well, because I mean, they talk about that season, or I'll butt in because that's what I do. But I think that it does bring up a good point. It is not our job to relay our personal feelings about a piece. Okay, like we should not react to how we feel about it. Our character in the story may need to react to the action at hand, but we should not interject our own opinion onto the piece, right? Because that's not what we're supposed to be doing as the narrator. We're supposed to leave that up to the listener for them to have their opinion. Sorry, Susan.
No, that's fine. No, and Brian has a really nice voice, which I think just technically he just did everything right. I don't know. I mean, I think it's like kind of like Scott Brick.
Yeah, that's what I thought of too.
Or even Simon Vance. And I bring these guys up all the time, that they really don't do a lot of outrageous characters, character dialects, character accents. It's a very straightforward read, which is really kind of nice as a listener. It kind of, you don't have to work so hard as the listener, just kind of go through the story. And I felt like everything he did was really appropriate. And, this is a teaching academy. And so we do reserve the right, again, like for directing, and Anthony and Brian had a directing session. What I heard was a little, what Brian sent me the second time was tweaked a bit, and it was just, it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. So anyway, we picked the right one, definitely.
Awesome. Good deal. I want to get to Erica's because I think we didn't get to Erica's last time. So let's go ahead and listen to Erica.
Erica Holden, Snow White and Rose Red. There was once a poor widow who lived in a lonely cottage. In front of the cottage was a garden wherein stood 2 rose trees, one of which bore white and the other red roses. She had 2 children who were like the 2 rose trees, and one was called Snow White and the other Rose Red. They were as good and happy, as busy and cheerful as ever 2 children in the world were. Only Snow White was more quiet and gentle than Rose Red. Rose Red liked better to run about in the meadows and fields seeking flowers and catching butterflies. But Snow White sat at home with her mother and helped her with the housework or read to her when there was nothing to do. The 2 children were so fond of one another that they always held each other by the hand when they went out together. And when Snow White said, "We will not leave each other," Rose Red answered, "Never, so long as we live." And their mother would add, "What one has, she must share with the other."
Okay. So I'm sorry. I love Erica.
I do too.
She's just a talent. And I think that there does come a point too, and part of this, I have always, and I believe this to my core, we all have the opportunity to be successful in voiceover. There is something that's skill and there's something that's talent. I love the way Erica sounds and the way Erica narrates. I could listen to Erica for hours and hours and hours. And I do think a lot of it has to do with just the sound of her voice, but let's break it down technical, because I think everybody can technically do what she's doing, and that the pacing is very good. If you notice with hers, this is an interesting piece. And the reason why I want to show everybody the actual work in a DAW is because if you look at it for the value of pauses, pacing, okay, you can tell that she's got idea, end of idea, pause. Full idea, whether it's a sentence or a comma, it's still all clumped within an idea. Then when the idea is over, it's paused. Okay, whereas sometimes someone might be, and we were talking about this in the beginning when we were talking about reading out loud skills, we might struggle a little bit reading out loud. So we might pause, like what if we had, what if we took this and, had a pause here, right? I mean,
They were as good and happy, as busy and cheerful as ever 2
I mean, that was a weird place, but if she had to take a breath there, you know what I mean? It would not be as, clear.
They were as good and happy, as busy and cheerful as,
right? Like why the pause there, other than my breathe, I'm struggling with my breathing. Right. And I think that's a lot of times, so I do think if you look at this, out of all of them, hers definitely has a different look to it, right? Like a different look. It is just as we look at other, and we're just looking through things. All right. Kyle's is kind of like that too, but his is a lot shorter thoughts, perhaps, and maybe some of them couldn't be there. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that out because it is interesting to look at these things like this. And I'm glad you guys are here too, because many times, unless you're doing what we're doing now, which is also working with other voice actors, you don't get to see these files from other voice actors. Like, I always think it would be really super cool. I mean, we would never get to do that, but to see the other auditions and to see how they differ, how they're alike, what is the commonalities, what are the, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that you all are here so you can see this. I want to hear Angela, Susan, what are your thoughts on this one? I could talk about it forever. So
one of the things that I like to listen for in an audiobook is, does the narrator take advantage of the script? And what I mean by that is, if there's a certain word or a certain character that, could be brought out one way or could be voiced one way, but the narrator chooses a completely different way, that's kind of taking advantage of the script. The sort of like, let's put it all together. Let's take something and really make this script special. And Erica does that, with Snow White rose red. Their voices are very distinct, you know, like you can really tell their personalities. And the narrator voice that she's got is just, she just makes really, really good choices.
By the way, on a side note, if you've not gone to watch Fisherman or listen to Fisherman and His Wife by her, the voices in that one, it's on our YouTube channel. It's hilarious.
It's so good. Yeah. And there's even a part in The Fisherman and His Wife where the fisherman comes back and says, I didn't ask the fish for anything. And the wife says, we live in a pigsty. And every other audition for The Fisherman and His Wife just kind of, you know, brushed over the fact that they live in a pigsty, that this isn't just like, oh, we live in a hut, we live in a hovel. No, they live in a pigsty with a pig. And Erica brought that out, that like, no, they live in a pigsty. And that you have to be able to read a script a certain way and analyze it and pull these things out of it and experience it. And I don't even know if it's method acting. I think it's just really kind of getting in the script. And that's what Erica really does well. Technically, she's excellent, but there's always something very special that she brings out as well. And that's not necessarily hard to do either. You know, you read a bunch of these books, you know, and we all should be readers. If we want to do audiobooks, we want to narrate audiobooks, we should be readers. We should read all the time. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I do want to point out something. Is Erica here?
She's here.
Okay.
I'm here. Yes.
Hi, Erica.
Hello. Thank you.
And I'm gonna, just because Erica's so wonderful and humble. And I know, and I do know Scott too. Scott Brigg. Scott doesn't do commercial work. Erica, right, is working on trying to get into commercial work. But I've noticed a lot of times, sometimes that narrators, really good narrators, for whatever reason, right, the longer form speaks better to them than the shorter form. All I'm bringing up too is that, you know, we all have areas where we might lean to a little bit easier without having to learn a little bit more. So if you're in a place where it might not seem to flow maybe as easy as it does when we listen to Erica, that doesn't mean that you can't work towards that either. Okay. Because like I listen to Erica and I'm like, man, I'm probably never going to sound that good to me. Right. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, I could narrate some stuff that I think I sound pretty damn good at, but not like this and this. So anyways, I just wanted to point out, so Angela, what are your thoughts on this? Because I just want to hear
I'm sorry, Erica, but I have to continue the Erica Love Fest. When we were doing anytime we'd be reading out loud to each other in our audiobook class, and I saw Erica was in class, I was just elated. I was just giggling. And there was a couple times where she just, again, just much like this audition here, she, no matter what it is, I guess is what I'm getting at, she takes complete control of the script. She is not afraid to take chances, to try new things, to see what she can actually bring out of the script. And I found a lot of people, including myself, don't do that. We sort of kind of get complacent, I think, sometimes. But she has complete ownership of every script that I have ever heard her read. She did a script for us once. Everybody else did a normal, like, English read. Do you remember this one, Erica? And she did two different Scottish accents, I think, for the two characters that were talking to each other. And I was just like, mind blown. But again, along with her stellar narration skills, I think her pacing was great. Technically speaking, I don't know if I can say a whole lot about the performance or really criticize anything. I'm going to get a big button that says I love Erica and wear it every day.
Oh my God.
Oh, so sweet. I just want to say, everybody just have fun. That's all I do. I have as much fun as I possibly can. Because if you worry about how you sound on something like this, you're not going to sound as good as you possibly could if you're just having fun. First have fun and then worry about the stuff. That's my motto.
Love it.
Now I will say that, and Erica, maybe you could say, I will say, was this the raw file, Erica?
The raw file. I think it was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I think I declicked it because I have lots of mouth noise, but I think that's all I did.
noise floor there, but still.
You know,
Yeah.
but that's just, you know, I'm look at me, I naturally go. I don't know if you guys are the
He
same.
had to find something to pick on
I had
the
to-
file
I'm
about.
glad. I
'Cause
do
you
have
Erica,
an
we've got to work on this technical stuff now. Come on, Erica. All right. No, but so I hope that this had, you know, these four did such a phenomenal job. It was a lot. We had some, and we had there was all again. I'm just gonna say it. Not that those other ones did any better than these, but we had some amazing people. I just have to say this. We had amazing people who auditioned, but they did not follow the directions. So they were disqualified from getting the jobs because they didn't follow the directions. So it's so important to also look at the technical part about this. You might not even be getting past the first, you know, wave, because especially if you're on ACX or anywhere like that, there are so many. Here's the purpose. Susan, can you just give us, I mean, we are what, for our stories, we're processing about probably total, what, 40 to 60 auditions total right now, but that's all of them. But
Yeah,
you were doing the other a ton. You were doing, how much were the other company that you used to work for that you?
I mean, it would be like 200 auditions. And it
Right.
really ended up just being a process of elimination, because there were so many that were I mean, I'd get like 50 that could have absolutely worked.
Mhm.
And it just would end up being like, well, he didn't slate his name or whatever, you know?
Right.
So yeah, just you have to follow directions.
Yeah, definitely. Also, here's some tips too, and we don't want to open it up for questions for people. Please, also, time is important. Don't wait till the very end. I mean, unless it's not on purpose, right? Like, if you know something is available, get it in there as soon as you can. Don't wait until the end, because I can tell you this, as I was a former casting director too, and I did live stage. You know, after the first 5, 10, it's the same thing with voices.com, not to bring in short other forms of platforms, but it gets exhausting listening to so many auditions that it can sometimes they sound very similar. And you end up, usually those first couple of ones leave an impression because they're the first ones. They might not even get past that. So whatever you can do, try to get your stuff in quickly, okay, as much as possible. Now, if you come across it and it's already been, you know, there, you do what you got to do, you know, put it in anyways. But just aware that a lot of times, and I want to talk about this to just briefly, just say something. Don't think you suck. I'm just going to say it, when you might not have even been listened to. You might have accidentally made a mistake with the slate. You might have been a little too late that they didn't even open your stuff, and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm horrible. They don't love, you know, I suck at this. It might not be any of that. You might not have just gotten into the right spot. That's why you'll hear so many people say, you got to do a lot of auditions and you got to put a lot of stuff out there. So I do want to open it up for questions. You guys have been great, very attentive, and writing notes diligently. I'm sure that's what you've been doing. Questions, thoughts, comments. What do you got for us? This is your time to ask the questions. I'm gonna go eat worms. That what in the world? Kyle, go ahead. What do you got, man?
First and foremost, shouts out to the other Kyle for winning it. Us Kyles must unite. Yeah. Real quickly, so I normally struggle trying to like slow down to fit 9,500 words ish per finished hour for nonfiction. And I know that with fiction, we really need to slow down. Is that 9,500 ish quote by ACX the same for fiction, considering the pacing and all of that stuff? Or is it like less words ish that we should be aiming for?
No, that's a good question. So, so listen, I mean, I typically will say between 9,000 to 10,000 words, whether you're doing fiction or nonfiction, should be around an hour, right? That should be at a decent pace. Does that mean it will always be like that? No, of course not. And also, if you're in nonfiction and God forbid the author producer is forcing you to read charts or forcing you to read things that's kind of like, what in the heaven's name? It could be all over the place. But typically speaking, that does hold true in an average standpoint. But that's why I like to do 9,000 to 10,000 and not narrow it down to 9,300, which I believe they say is the hour. But nonfiction wise, you got to remember too, nonfiction, you know, you are supposed to be the authority, the author in a lot of senses, right? The person when you're narrating a nonfiction piece. So there is a mode of confidence there where you're telling us, you know, in a authoritative type of a way, what we are supposed to know. So that doesn't mean that it's not a story, because there's a lot of nonfictions who are told with some sorts of stories. But I do think sometimes nonfiction can be actually can be done faster, a lot of senses, than necessarily as slow, just like what you said. But I would definitely use that 9,000 to 10,000 mark. Are you struggling to get anywhere near there? Are you going longer, slower?
So me slowing down is the hardest part. So I guess like in my mind, like a lot of times I overthink like the acting decisions and stuff, and little things like, well, am I taking too long to like let the prose breathe before I'm actually moving into the dialogue? Because now that's something that we're trying to work on too. So like, I just don't want, I'm trying to, I guess, like make a safety net for myself so I don't overthink before I even start narrating, that like, it's okay if we're not at this esque pace. Like if you feel like it's going to be like an 8,000 or an 8,500 word, because there's a lot of things happening or being said, then that's okay too, I guess. But yeah, making it below like 10,000 words per finished hour is hard for me, because I talk too fast. So I guess I'm just trying to like lay that foundation to like let myself know it's okay to not read that fast, and you can even take longer than you think, I guess.
Yeah.
The word count is not a time or like a time standard. You don't necessarily have to fit into a set amount of time. I think it's just naturally whatever it ends up being. They give you an estimate so you have an idea roughly of how long the book might be, but it's not a requirement. You don't have to cut down. It's not like a 30-second commercial and trying to fit in 500 words into a 30-second commercial. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have to fit into a certain time constraint. It's just a rough estimate for your own knowledge. Because roughly, like Anthony said, depending on your pace, usually between 9,000 to 10,000 words is roughly a finished hour. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to cut it all down to make it fit within a certain time frame. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
It
Yeah.
just is what it is, and it's okay. But I think, do you personally listen to audiobooks yourself?
No.
Okay, see, that's when you and I can't be friends. Okay,
Oh,
so
I'm not
you need
against
to
it.
listen to audiobooks. If you listen to, I'm telling you, like I said earlier, my brain goes super fast when I'm reading to myself. And I had to make myself slow down to narrate audiobooks. I had to, because I was just reading too fast, right? If you listen to audiobooks, listen to a few of them, even just the samples, just to get an idea of what kind of paces other people are using that you can still follow along with, that sound pleasant to your ear and to your brain, and then just sort of pick up those tips, right? It doesn't have to be a certain pace all the time. You can switch it up, just whatever feels natural to you as the professional storyteller. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of it is too, is I get too caught up on the specifics or like requirements and forget that it's a suggestion, like you said. So like that, I'm good to go now. Like I think that gave me the more freedom for my reads.
Thanks, Kyle.
Perfect.
Appreciate it, man. Well, the other Kyle.
Hey, Kyle and Anthony and Susan and Angela. Thanks, guys.
Kyle.
So my question is about character voices in fiction books. So I've done some fantasy ones, some sci-fi ones, and then I've listened to Scott Brick stuff and other narrators. And I was driving myself nuts trying to come up with 60 to 80 unique character voices in some of these books. And I was kind of reached out months ago when I was doing it. I was like, do you just keep trying? Or is there some sort of limit? It's like, okay, I don't need to come up with a super unique voice for guard number 2 in XYZ. I don't know. Thoughts kind of just on what's the limit to unique voices within a book?
So first off, it is important again to know the story in a couple different ways. One, is it a farce? Is it a comedy? Is it, more of a realistic setting? Why does that matter? Because like if it's a farce or it's an over the top story like the fairy tales, we're gonna want something over the top and interesting like that, right? But if it's not like that, you know what I mean? Like we just won like one of our last audition contests that we hold in a VO's Journey. We hold audition contests every month in a VO's Journey Elite Academy. We did Jurassic Park, which was, I mean, I don't know if we're all like Scott Brick fans here, but of course Scott Brick narrated that. Great book, and narrated book. And he does different voices, but the voices are never more than a little bit of a change. Okay, even if it's male or female. So if you're a male trying to do female voices, or a female trying to do male voices, I always get that question a lot. How do I do a male voice, right? Do I lower my voice? How do I do a female voice? Do I raise my voice? Well, the reality is a lot of times, unless again, the fairy tales are one thing, you don't need to, the pitch change and the variation should not be, the first off go-to for a different character, right? We should be looking more at things like changing breathiness, changing the position in your mouth, changing, whether it's in the back of your throat, changing whether there is, it's a little harder to speak, you constrain, tighten your throat. So what I'm saying to you is, Kyle, is I think there does come a point, if you're doing 60 to 80 voices, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for any book or story. That's an insane amount. So clearly, if there's guard number 2 who has a line or a few words, I would not stress so much about how differently unique it is. Okay, because from the story standpoint, we're going to get it. Now, if it's a character throughout, what I like to do is I often create characters and then I record myself, or I take a snippet and I name that character and I save that. So that, because if a lot of books we do are written chapters. One, a lot of narrator or authors will do one chapter with a set of characters and then another chapter with another set of characters. So how do you, like, sometimes if you're doing these books, all the characters ought to start sounding the same. So what you have to do is you create your character, especially the main characters, record yourself that snippet, name that character so you can go back and listen to it when it comes time for you to do it. You know what I mean? And that's a great way to do it. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if Susan and Angela has something different to say, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, I always do, like for audiobooks, I'll have a character template, which is a separate file, and it just has characters and actual like recordings that I've copied from one track to like, the other song, whatever. And, I think that like, you should really have kind of like 10 voices, like 8 to 10 voices that you're really confident with. And I always say, name your voices too. And, give them names. And so that you can like go back and say like, okay, well, that was Robert. And for this book where he's the supporting character, he's the best friend, whatever, that's going to be Robert's voice. Robert is used in every single book. And, another thing is that the more lines, the way I do it is the more lines the character has, the closer they need to be to your natural speaking voice. And the less lines a character has, they can be kind of more funny or ridiculous, or, like if it's guard number 2 and you want to make them sound like really gruff and mean, I mean, growly, you can do that. But, anyway, that's how I do it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Oh, thank you so much. Angela, I don't know if Angela was having some issues. But
yeah, I was having audio issues. I was having difficulty hearing. It sounded just like everybody was all crackly and stuff. But just from picking up from the end of what you were saying and what Susan was saying, I'm assuming we're talking about character voices.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing that Susan does in terms of just having a nice little corral of go-to voices. And I even go, and I probably shouldn't, but I refer to them as like stereotypes. Like I have the Barbie, I have the lumberjack, I have, you know what I mean? The sort of kind of fit the attitude and personality of the person that I'm doing. And also, same as what Susan said, the more lines they have, the closer you want them to be to your own voice, or easy for you to sustain, because you're going to be using that voice a lot and you don't want to overwork all of this. And then you're just sitting there like, I can't narrate anything now. And then also for keeping track of the different character voices, what you could do is have either a single file, a single audio file separated by markers named each character's voice. For easy access, you could just at a glance, or just listen to each one just to remind yourself who everybody sounds like or what their nuances are, or have a separate file for each character. I even know someone here. There's someone here today that actually writes it down, right, Claire? They write down where the voice is in their throat or in their face, which is really cool.
I love that. No,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for that question, Kyle. I really appreciate it. Real quick, I have to say, and I want to do this because we are right now, we brought it back because of some amazing things going on. We are offering 50% off the first month at Avio's Journey Elite Academy. And I do want to, I would be remiss if I didn't, there's the link in the chat. I don't ever like to do these workshops to promote the Academy per se, but at the same time, I actually really, with Susan and Angela, I really guys think that we've got something really cool going on, especially with this production company at the Academy that no one else does. And, it is an opportunity for all of us. Also, we're going to be starting to hire voice actors from the Academy to do the book trailers. So I'm really excited about that because that's going to be shorter form, because not everybody likes longer form, although you all are here. So I assume you like longer form narration because you're doing audiobooks. So, that's something that we're really super excited about. So I would just check it out. It's really great and you'll really love it. And we've also added some incredible stuff with the Discord channel. I'm not saying that I am living in my studio, but at nights I'm now literally on Discord live doing critiques and of your audio, your profiles, your everything live. So that's a cool option too. So okay. Sue said, did the price of the Academy increase though? No, well, we're doing half off. Price hasn't increased. We're just doing half off the first month. Any other questions or questions about that, or comments or anything else that you have to ask the panel today?
Bill asked something in the chat about like Scott Brick's narration, that a lot of times he doesn't change voices a whole lot, or it's like a very slight change. Yeah. And I know we kind of addressed that, but I mean, I was just going to kind of point out that with Scott Brick, he's just the master storyteller, and because of his phrasing, and I think because of the analysis that he does, he doesn't need to do a whole lot of changing. I mean, I've never listened to a Scott Brick and thought a narration and thought like, wait a minute, who is that? He just does it. He's a really good actor, and a lot of this is acting. We can't just change a voice and have some goofy little weird thing. We really have to feel what we're saying. That's part of it. And I think like, especially the additions that we chose, part of the reason we chose them was because we felt like this was just really good acting. Technically it was good. On a lot of other reasons it was good, but it was just good acting too. And so, work on that, work on really feeling what's going on. I wanted to just make a suggestion that if you haven't listened to The Martian, which was made into a movie, had that guy in it, Jason Bourne, whoever he is. But anyway, that book by Andy Weir, which just broke all these records, he went to ACX and he hired somebody like us to narrate, or somebody like you, somebody who was brand new just on ACX. He hired R.C. Bray to narrate The Martian, and it catapulted his career. So it is possible for all of us to do amazing things with this. And I do recommend that you listen to Andy Weir's The Martian, narrated by R.C. Bray. It was later narrated by Will Wheaton, and I'm sure Will Wheaton did an excellent job too, but R.C. Bray was the original narrator. And he's just like you, regular guy, wanting to do something different with his life. And just a really, really good example.
Cool beans. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? We've been good. It's been about an hour and a half. Sasha.
Hi, everybody. Just a quick question about, obviously, when you're listening to auditions, the artistic read is, I think, a bit more important than the technical side. How much leeway can you deal with the technical side? Obviously, if there's a few problems with the technical aspects of the file, but the read is really fantastic, where is that kind of boundary line where you say, the read is so good, but there's just too many mouth clicks, and I have to say no.
So
does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to start and then we go to the other videos, because so I think what Susan said too, you know, at the Academy, part of what we are doing also is teaching, but the 4 people we listened to, we were a little nitpicky on the technical stuff, but the reality is their audio was still pretty darn good. The audio, you know, makes a massive difference. Like, for example, one thing you didn't hear, I didn't hear in any of their audio, any feedback or reverb, really. There was, I mean, the spaces were clearly treated decently. You know, we had maybe some processing things here or there that can be fixed. But I do think that, and this is, Sasha, this is true. And I'm one of those, I guess, in some senses, I am a new, if you all know me at all or know what I put out, maybe I'm a new wave type of guy, but in this sense, I'm an old school person. And that is, the acting will move me. If your acting moves me, I hate to say it, I'm willing to move some stars for you. Because so in some senses, that is true for myself. I know Susan probably, I don't know if Susan believes me or not, but that's me. I feel that way. So however,
No, I do. I was just reading in the comments that Bill said the RC Bray version is no longer available. Sorry. But no, I'm the same way. If the acting is really good. Okay. No. The acting can trump a lot of issues. But we can work with you.
Right. But if your acting is good and someone else is good, but their audio is better, then right. You know, then you're kind of back in the dog. But yes, I think if there was so actually the other day in one of our last classes, we're working on visibility marketing, some, you know, part of it, because I do marketing as well as voice acting or advanced voice acting. And one of the things we're talking about is that the price of admission today in the voiceover world is that you do have good audio and that you do have the ability to perform decently. So that, like, that's the price of admission today. Look at how many voice actors have come into the industry in the last 2 years. However, again, I will go back, Sasha, to that reality that if I'm like blown away, I'm like, I want you. I'll work with you now, but that's me in the Academy saying, I do this every day. I'm willing to meet with you and help you. Not, I'm willing to do that. Can I speak for Penguin Random House Audio or different place? No, I can't speak for those people, right? Because I don't know if they would be willing to do that. I know I would, because I know I could help you with your audio. You see what I mean? So yeah. I'm willing to do that. I don't know. I would not count on other people willing to do that. They might not even listen past the first couple of lines if your audio is not up to par.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering about ACX. Like, you pass all the ACX specs, but how strict are they being with the rest?
They're not gonna. No. So some people, by the way, if you're using Audacity or you're using some of those, I guess, what does it have? The passing, the Audacity of the
checker
and stuff. Those were checks that are not. ACX will let you get, I mean, that's not going to, like, somebody, it'll pop up and say your noise floor is too low. That's an ACX, that, I mean, that's a Audacity. That is not ACX is not going to come back and say your noise floor is too low. All right. But they're trying, Audacity is trying to tell you, well, maybe you should consider that in good practice, you know, some noise floor might be a little bit better. We don't want you to be like talking. We don't want it to
Right.
sound like that, right? But when it comes to the acting, and quite frankly, I wish ACX would do a little bit more. I think it would solve a lot of all of our issues we have with ACX. But they don't really. It's really ACX literally does not care. It's between you and the producer. As long as you pass the technical specs, because they don't. I mean, like if you get up there and no one buys from you, I mean, they don't care. Right. That's the downside to that platform now, I think, is that it's just gotten to the point where they could do something. They've got the money. They've got to have that.
Yeah.
Amazon, for goodness. Anyways, I have my own personal qualms, my frustrations, because I started there. And I love ACX. I mean, that's what I started doing. I thought the royalty share books and the residuals were so vital to success for a lot of us. That's why I started the production company with Susan and I, to give that ability, to give that option to voice actors to where they could have income month after month and being a part of the academy like that. But ACX is, hopefully they fix some of the stuff. Lori.
Hello. So on ACX, do you slate when you do an audition, or does it have to be in their requirements on the request from the narrator or from the author?
If it doesn't say in the directions to slate on an ACX book, I typically do it anyway. And it's just because of this. It's like, I call a slate kind of like a handshake. Like you're just kind of saying like, hey, I'm just introducing myself. My name is Susan Fouché. And then I go into it. So I think like the more you can also put your name on stuff, the better people are going to remember you. So I always say like, you know, whatever naming convention you use when you name your files, when you export them and save them, put your name on them, you know, as much as you possibly can. If you're paid for it, whatever, put your name on it. Make sure that like in your DAW, you've got a way to like actually have your name. So when they play your audio in the Windows media player or whatever the player they're playing in, your name pops up. So I think anytime you can say your name as much as you can, that's always a good thing. So I would say just slate as much as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other thoughts, comments? Anybody?
I was going to have to say, I'm one of those people, maybe just have less patience than most people, but I don't slate unless it's specifically required. I only put my name in the metadata and I put my name in the file name, but I want to get right to it. I want to hook the listener in as quickly as possible because I know they have 100 other auditions to listen through and I want to be memorable off the bat. But that's just me.
No,
But
and
again,
no, and if your audition is really good, then I mean you don't even have to worry about slating. But I was just gonna say, like when I was curating auditions for the other place I worked at, when it was like 200 different auditions, and there was, you know, people whose names were like Angela Miller and Annie Miller, and they had, you know, sometimes it was just easier to have that slate in the beginning so I could hear it and be like, oh, okay, that's Angie Miller instead of Annie Miller. But you know, I would say definitely like do put your name, like you said, Angela, in the metadata, in the name of your file. Yeah, and slate if you want to.
So I guess the real thing is always, no matter what, they'll follow the directions that they give you. And if they don't give you, it's really up to you. And I'm a big tester. Test. You know, you're doing a whole bunch and you're slating and you're not slating, you know, see what works and what doesn't work. But I personally do like, though, to get my name as many places as possible. So what Angela's saying is she does put her name, you know, get your name, whether it's in Medit somewhere, whether you have it on the, just make sure your name is there. So at least they become familiar, because a lot of these people are doing multiple books. So they might not hire you for this one, but they might hire you. Oh yeah, I remember that person. Oh yeah, I remember them. Right. So that's a good thing. Erica.
Anne had a really good question that I think might help people. She says, how do you decide when making a demo what section to put in it? Find a good, exciting part or read a short story?
That's a great question, Anne. So the easy thing to do is to go get, you know, something free from the beginning of something. That's the easy thing in Amazon to do. Is that always the most exciting part? No. And picking, I can tell you from a casting director's point of view, picking the audition, especially where putting it in your demo, is massively important, right? Because the better part you have to read gives you more of a way to shine. Now, when you're auditioning for someone else, they supply that for you, so that's no big deal. But in your demo, yes, you're going to want to try to find some things. And honestly, I'd say the best way to do that is you're going to have to read and listen, because there's so much out there. Like, I don't personally have, although that's a good thing. Maybe we can start curating good ideas. But problem with scripts is when you start curating those, so many people use them that then they become overworked. So I would say that the easy way, I think, and Eric said it, yes, you can go to Amazon, read the previews. And that's an easy way to get lots of work, lots of stuff. But otherwise, you're going to have to find those parts. But knowing what to look for, dialogue, and then you can listen, type into Google, what is the best part of this book? I know that sounds silly, but sometimes those silly questions really do help. Because, you type that in and it might, someone might have written something about it. This is the climax. What is the climax of this book? What is good dialogue? I hope that helps. Susan?
Well, I was gonna say, and Anne, what do you like? Have you recorded any books?
I have not yet. I'm getting back into voiceover things. I did it 15 years ago, and so I'm getting back. So I'm essentially just starting from scratch and using my favorite books that I've read to kind of go, okay, well, I know Peter and the Starcatchers has some good, exciting things. So maybe I'll start there, or Where the Red Fern Grows, or,
Yeah. Yeah. And, I say this all the time, like the first things that you're going to put on ACX, because I'm assuming you're going to go to ACX. Is that right?
I'm thinking so. I've also tried, I was going to try short form, but I don't love the Fiverr genre. So I think I'm like, I'll just start with audiobooks because it feels more comfortable.
No, that's where like Anthony and I, Angela, we all started on ACX. It was like I think it's the easiest thing to do because so much of us, we love to read out loud, we talk out loud, read out loud. So what I was going to say though, Anne, is that just remember this, the samples that you put up or your demos that you're going to put up at first on ACX, they're not going to be the ones that you stick with. So sometimes it's better just to go ahead and pick your favorite book, like you're talking about, Where the Red Fern Grows. Pick like a really great dialogue from that book, with the Southern accent and the child voice, and use that as a sample. And then you have another really great book that you love, put those up as your samples. And then as you audition on ACX, you can use those auditions as samples as well. And then once you are awarded books and win auditions, you've got more samples, and you'll probably go back a couple of years from now and be like, yeah, I don't really want Where the Red Fern Grows anymore.
But just go on Amazon, type in my name back in 2017, because I didn't know what's really to use a pseudonym. So every book from the beginning, you'll laugh your butt off. I'm the first, because all my books, my first book I ever narrated is up there still, and it is pretty darn funny. So you're right. You're never gonna, it will not be the same over time. You will grow. Yeah. Definitely don't wait. Get stuff up.
Yeah, get yourself started. The one of the samples that I used when I got on ACX was from The Exorcist. It's not up anymore, but I mean, I was like, I want to be the devil. I just want to do that.
Susan. All right.
Thank you.
Claire.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
My question is, and it was something that you mentioned early on. It was something about, you mentioned the slated, but then first person and then third person. And so should we be doing first person and third person for all the audiobooks, or when we do an audition, should there be both of them for ACX, or do you just pick one?
Okay, so I think are you asking about like what should you put up on the samples for ACX?
Oh no, for auditions.
Okay,
So do
so
would-
if you're auditioning, usually they're going to give you a script,
okay.
right? So
No,
they'll
okay.
tell you what they want. However, there is an occasion where someone is a novice and they give you the whole file of the book, and they're like, audition. In that case, I only ever do 1 to. So, by the way, this is a little tip for everybody too. You don't need to do more than 1 to 2 minutes of an audition. Okay, but sometimes they'll put, and I've seen people, bless their hearts, do 15-minute auditions, and that's just, don't put yourself through that. Just do 1 to 2 minutes. They should give it to you. But if you're, so they're going to give you the script though. So in which case you do whatever they give you, which could be in any of them. I have met some people who are like, I want you to do pages this and this, because there's, the two main characters, one's a male, one's a female, and I want to hear you do both. I've seen that, I've done that, but typically it's what they give you. Sample wise, yes, you want to put in first person, third person, dialogue, nonfiction. You want to put in different variations so people get a chance to see that.
Okay. So the first person, third person wasn't so much for the ACX audition, but it was for what you put up for your samples.
Yes, or your demo. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Kenrick.
Yay, my turn. Quick question. So this is actually a weird question. So right now I'm in between places, and I'm trying to get prepared to do more audiobooks, especially nonfiction audiobooks, once I'm finally settled and situated. What can I do? Do you have any suggestions on what I can do in terms of, aside from just picking one old book and, reading it aloud and working on my reading ahead and things like that? I mean, should I just, even though my space isn't as great as I'd like it to be, should I still try to do auditions through, whenever something comes up for a VO's journey?
So look, I think, well, of course, clearly, we always, right after this, Mondays, when we post the new set of books and stuff we're doing for the next month. But for the Academy. But as silly as this sounds, I didn't know what I didn't know. When I started with a $40 microphone, a wire coat hanger and a pantyhose as my pop filter. And I had PVC pipe and packing blankets right next to the kitchen where my refrigerator never stopped running, because it was one of those old ones where it kept running. And I just auditioned. That's all. And I thank, and this is for everybody. Please hear me on this one. I thank God that I didn't listen to the people who said, you don't want to put stuff out there until you have everything perfect. Because if I did that, I would never have put anything out there, and I wouldn't. I hate to say it, not trying to. I'm not tooting a horn, but we would not. None of us would be here today, at least in this capacity right now. So don't go for it, man. Go for it. You're gonna get better. This is not a one-time and it's over thing. Like, I don't know about you, but I want to do this now for the rest of my life. So I know that I'm gonna be better. That's why I like to always go back. I even do it. Go back to listen to those first things I put out to think how far I've come, what, what I mean, over time, and how far I'll come in another 5 years. So whatever you do, take that opportunity now, because you never know. Something might help you. You might get the very job you need to get better stuff.
Yeah, the very first book I was awarded, it was The Successful Single Mom, and it was a nonfiction. And she gave me the whole series, and I was so nervous. And I called one of the people who I knew here in Nashville, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm so scared. I've got this crap microphone and same space, but there was clothes everywhere, and there was a laptop and terrible, horrible noise. And Joe said, let me tell you something. People are making tens of thousands of money recording audiobooks on the exact same equipment you are. And I think it's kind of like to Sasha's point and what we were saying, acting has a lot to do with this.
Yes.
So just keep practicing, keep going, and just audition. Auditioning is a great way to practice. You're not going to get blacklisted or, kicked off a roster from auditioning. They don't know. They don't care. Just audition.
And don't ever think that you have to wait until. I can't do this until I have X mic. I can't do this until I have this chair that doesn't make noise. Don't wait until because that until may never come. Just do it, as I always say. Just do it.
Absolutely.
Just pull a Nike and do it.
This was
Do
the
it.
there you go. This was the first thing I'd ever done in my life where I didn't wait till I was ready. And it changed my life forever. Then I spent way more money at the than I should have, but thank God it did work out because I stuck with it. So Laurel.
Is there such a thing as too many demos on your ACX profile?
No.
I don't think you're limited at all.
No, you just keep popping them up there. Here's a little tip on ACX. Here's a little tip. I would recommend actually that you put up 3 new samples at least once or twice a week. And the reason why is because every time ACX, their algorithm it's not an algorithm. Basically, when you put up samples, you go to the top of the list. So remember, people can hire you 2 ways. You can get a contract through an audition, but you can also be sent a contract through their producers for hire section. People go there and they listen to the producers. If you put in, and I say 3 samples because the columns, there's 3 aside. So it's like 3, 3, 3, 3, right? So you put in 3, you'll be the first top row for at least an hour or 2. And you'll be on that front page for at least a couple of hours. So it's worth getting yourself, putting up a couple new samples on there. When it's time for me to go, do audiobooks, whenever I go through my audiobook phase again, and I put more stuff up there, I always will get contracts sent to me without me auditioning. All right, by putting samples up there as well. But you can determine, there might not be contracts you want sometimes, and you can always be like, no, thank you, or you can negotiate, but it's a way for you to get, so put the samples up.
And recycle them.
Yeah, recycle them. That's good. You can recycle them too. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Randall.
Just real briefly, going back to what you said about just putting it out there and getting started, don't wait. My friend John's a musician. He's written thousands of songs, and way back when he was doing this interview, he explained what he called his 30 song theory. He says, it doesn't matter who you are, the first 30 songs you write are going to suck. So just do them and get it over with so you can get better. The first 30 songs Bob Dylan wrote probably sucked. So it doesn't matter. You just need to get going. You need to get started.
Oh, yeah.
And don't worry about it. Just keep moving.
And that right there, what you said, that holds true for marketing. That holds true for everything. The first 30 cold calls you ever make, or the first 30 emails you ever write, they're just get through them. Just do it.
Weird. You feel like it's wrong. It probably is wrong. You thought that was something? I didn't know what I didn't know. When I first started, I wanted to work for Blizzard. So you know what I did? I called their customer support. Those poor people. I'm like, hey, I'm a voice actor. I'd like to do. They're like, sir, this is customer support. Do you have an issue with your billing account? Be like, no, I want to. Who do I talk to? I had no idea. The customer support, probably those poor people. Why is this person who's claiming to be a voice actor calling us? But you gotta do what you gotta do. And it's a funny story. I mean, right? Because it's true. I think some of those things, and it's almost like putting in like putting in your dues, doing the stuff that and you can look back and say, I did that. So, Lori.
All right, I just had a quick question for you, Anthony, or a suggestion. Maybe you've already done this. I don't know. You should probably redo one of your old recordings and then compare it to re-record it now and compare the two in a class to us, so we can see where some of the bad parts are versus what should have been changed.
My goodness. Well, I mean, I think, why wait?
Wow.
Just an
idea.
You're sticking around. You want to laugh. I'm just going to Amazon here. Actually, I should go to Audible, shouldn't I? Let's see, Audible. No, I do think it's a good thing. I don't know if Susan or Angela has that, but I think you guys, you want to hear something hilarious. This is good stuff. Here we go. So let me see. Okay, so let's see. So let's see, there's 64 here. What is if we go newest, then we go back to the end. Here we go. Let's see. All right. So this one, I believe, May 4th. So I started my business in April, my birthday, April 4th, 2017. So this was my first book. Are y'all ready for this? All right, here we go.
Friedman begins this book by writing about why he went into journalism, his love of breaking down complex subjects to make them understandable. He feels that his work is more relevant now than ever, and many people feel frightened by the changes happening in the modern world, including accelerations in technology, climate change, and globalization. Because of these enormous changes happening so fast, big updates need to happen in societies.
Like I listen to that, I don't even know who that is.
Oh my God, I can totally hear the editing.
I don't think I could. I don't think I could talk. I did this. I don't know if it was a year ago. I tried to go back and see if I could recreate that. Like if I could talk like that again. And I don't think I can.
You
know?
enunciated so carefully.
Right. Because I was so, so when I'm working with people like my mentor students, when I tell people about, you're just speaking too damn good, that's the truth, right? Because we sometimes we focus so much on speaking properly or enunciating correctly that we forget that's not how we talk normally, but we all got to do it right. So, but so now let's listen to another one.
Chapter 1.
This was I'm going to try it in a higher pitch one.
The mindsets. Why do people differ? Even kids differ in the ways that they view themselves.
Sorry, it's so funny to me.
You sound like an AI.
That's right. Even kids differ. I make fun because I'm trying, because I don't know about you guys, but the whole point here is I was trying to figure out how I should sound.
Yeah.
Every book I did was a new. Now you'll notice, just like Susan said, she got hired for this series. I started doing auditions, and I got hired for this company. This guy was some globetrotter guy who all these books were coming out. And at the time, it's like he came up with this thing where he was going to do these summaries. Right. And I got hired to do a bunch of these series. Oh my gosh, I screwed up so much. These people would email me and curse me out. They would say, "You're supposed to be a professional. You don't know what you're doing." Of course, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. But I had to lie and be like, my bad. Yeah, no, it was an issue with I did whatever I could. Right. But there was, and the funny thing is, they've sold a crap ton of these. These have made me thousands and thousands of dollars.
Chapter 1. Don't try. The narrative of any great inspirational film in which the protagonist works.
Now you'll notice even this fourth one is starting to get a little bit less concerned. Let's see, what is the last one up here? Because I got away from doing any of these. When was the last one that's published on here? Oh, back in 2020. Okay.
I was sitting by the banks of Walden Pond, which overlooks where Henry David Thoreau once lived in his shelter. As I peered down at the book I was reading by Tom Peters, a well-known author of business management practices, there it was. Make a new pie with an excellent value proposition.
All right, so I think you could tell there's a little difference in confidence.
Yes,
right, with confidence, right? And I think, I'll be honest with you guys, I think my podcast too had a lot to do with that. Of constantly, whether it's you doing 241 episodes of something where you literally just talk in front of a microphone for hours a day, you will get better. But if you don't do this, right, and at least hopefully you had a good laugh. I mean, I do think this becomes kind of funny. It's so nice for me actually to go back and look at these because, I don't even, good Lord, what is Peter Pan? Okay, here, what did I do?
Part 1. Wendy woke up when she heard the door to her dresser.
I could tell my audio really was awful.
Slammed shut. She opened her eyes and saw a funny little boy sitting on the floor of her bedroom.
It actually wasn't as bad the narration there, except you could tell I was still really concerned with how I sounded.
A fairy sat on his shoulder. "I lost my shadow," the boy said. He held up his shadow and a bar of soap. Can you help me? It won't stay on." Wendy hopped out of bed.
Anyway, I won't subject you all to that anymore. But
on pronunciations, I noticed something on a actually professionally produced network TV show where the narrator, who is a big name narrator, insisted on pronouncing Syracuse. And he did it, and the whole show was about ancient technology. So he was saying Syracuse over and over again, and I nearly tore out my hair.
That's
And
the worst. I know.
I just had to
Or
share
like
that with someone.
Benedict Cumberbatch with penguins.
Oh my
Did you
gosh.
guys ever
Oh,
see that
yes,
one?
that's
The word penguin changed all throughout the documentary. But you know what? Doing what Anthony just did is a great thing to help you overcome imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
You can remind yourself where you started and everything that you have done and everything that you've experienced and how far you've come in your own self-development to get to where you are now. So you just punch that fear demon in the face and keep on narrating.
But I think
And everyone starts out as an imposter, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some of us still are imposters.
Oh, he still knocks on my door every day and I tell him to kick rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do and just as a note too, none of those books you would never have known. You might have said expected if you were another narrator, but my booth, my equipment, none of that stuff is on those books or in those descriptions. No one knows where you're sitting, what you're recording on, right? So I mean, I think that is another thing that also aesthetically it's nice to have a place we go into and it looks good, there's no doubt. But in the end, we all know that is not a nice space, is not a prerequisite for good sounding audio. I still, out of everything I've built, the best sounding place I did was right before I took down my hobo fort, because by the end of my hobo fort was the best sounding thing, but I had like 10 at that point. I had 10 layers of clothing and blankets and pillows, and I had I could leave the back open and it's still, you walk in there and it was like, just dead silent. It was beautiful. But that it's very, so it's not, a space is not a prerequisite, but you've got to start somewhere. So I'm glad that I did at least, and I got hired. I don't know what those people were thinking, but they still hired me. And I sold a lot. So no matter what anyone says to you, and I've said this to people too, because sometimes people have said something to me about doing short form books that you shouldn't do that, or that'll ruin your career. Whatever. Those books right there, even as crappy as those, they've paid me thousands and thousands of dollars alone. So somebody's buying them and don't give a crap. So I think sometimes clearly we're our biggest critics. But it is fun to laugh at yourself. I think that I just listen back and I'm like, I couldn't talk. I don't know if I I don't think I could do it. And I don't think I could copy how I sounded then. Cause that, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird.
Would you say that your diction is, you've relaxed it a bit over time? Because I find myself catching myself, and I think I'm a very self-aware person. Like, oh, I just said that wrong. Oh, I forgot to add a T on the end of this word, when I'm recording or something like that. And then, but maybe it's people aren't actually going to pick up on that, as much as I would, as I'm going through the process. Would you say that it's true, or to some extent, or, see what I'm saying? Probably not.
Yeah, you're going to be a lot more picky than everyone else is.
Okay. Yeah.
We are our own worst critics.
That's what I
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
200%.
And I think too, and it's so, this is what's crazy. I mean, all of us, no matter what field you've been in, we've been talking our whole lives, for goodness sake. That's what bothered me the most. We should be able to get in front of a microphone and talk. But the reality is that when you step in front of this thing, like you step on stage, it's just like someone stepping on stage, right? They're like, I'm going on stage, and they go on stage like, this is my voice on stage. And then they step off and be like, how'd I do? What did you think? And you're like, well, okay, you were good, but I mean, or we step in front of the mic. Now I'm in front of the microphone and no one's there, right? And you're, why is it so hard, for us just to talk? And I do think that for me, and I've done hundreds of live performances before I started as a voice actor. But yet that's how I sounded when I first started. Like I was a very novice and I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know how to perform comfortably. Right. And I think that was what it was, because I was not comfortable. Because I was under the assumption, and here's an assumption that I made. I was under the assumption that this thing I spoke into, right, was this just whole different world other than me being able to just speak to other people. And that was hard for me to get over. And I didn't get over it for a while. Also, I didn't get over it, and I hate to say this, I didn't get over it too until I got a lot of positive feedback. But I would never have gotten that positive feedback from people if I didn't keep going. I didn't get the positive feedback when I first started. I mean, the positive feedback I got was, holy crap, someone hired me. That was like, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm a narrator on Amazon and Audible. You can find my name, right? That was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I think that it definitely, but then I realized too, that I had some other voices. You know what I thought I'd never do was commercial voiceover. I thought I will do nonfiction forever. And I ended up doing more commercial work than I ever did.
Well, that's where I'm starting, because I need a place to start. So, and I figured long form would transition, or not easier, but it's a great way to start. Yeah.
It worked for a lot of us. Start with long form, because it taught me how to get over myself and the worries I had and to feel okay with talking. I will say my podcast helped a lot. I can't lie. My podcast helped because I would sit here and I had to imagine that I was talking to you all. You know, when they say, imagine there's someone in the room for you. Does anybody else find that to be kind of like, come on, real, like we shake our heads like, yeah, I'm going to imagine someone's in the room with me. Do you guys really? I struggle with that. I'm like, there's nobody here in the room with me.
Never works for me.
Like, I mean, I'm like, how do I talk with someone in there? I don't talk with anybody in the room like this. I always thought it was like, be the next door neighbor. I don't talk to my next door neighbor this way. Like some of those cliches, like those things, I never, I don't sell a lawnmower to my next door neighbor. I don't, I always struggled with those things personally, and people said them. So I realized that, I had to create this world in my mind. Right. I had to create this world in my mind, and my podcast helped a lot on that. Because I just and the YouTube videos, because I had to make all these videos. No one's in the room, no one's here, and I have to pretend like I'm actually chatting with you guys and having a conversation, and that pretending helped a lot. I think. It seems creepy. Someone's in the room with you. That's all right. Where are they? No,
it's your lunch lady from middle school.
Lunch lady, man. Yeah,
about some sloppy joes.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Sloppy joes.
Yes, now we're getting delirious. All right, so is there listen, you guys have been amazing. I hope this has been really helpful. You've gotten some good tips. I think in the end here, the biggest thing, as we talked about, where these people are, I can tell you that if you haven't started yet, you just got to start. You've got to start. And I will tell you, I can tell you this though, to get with the right community. All right. Whether it's even, we'd love to have you at a VO Journey, the academy, but even if it's not the academy, get with a community that will support you, because that's important too. Because this is I'll be honest with you, when I went full time, it was my goal. My number one goal was to go full time. And then the first thing I realized when I was full time and my kids went to school, my wife went to work, I was all alone. I was like, well, this is not me. I didn't want to be. Some people really do like the being alone all day. That's not me. So I was like, this is not actually that much fun. So, I'm so thankful I get to do things like this now, because like if I didn't get to talk and interact with you all and stuff, I would go nuts. But we all have different things. That's just me. Not everybody else is like that, but that's just.
Okay. And also to that point, when you do go full time, I do highly recommend, now that COVID, it seems to be kind of going away, get into some networking groups. That helps so much to just they kind of like become your friends, like become your work buddies. Try to do some networking groups.
You've done a lot of networking in Nashville, haven't you, Susan?
I have. And, but going back to like Randall, what you were saying, the first 30 times, I'm going to tell you this, one of the first networking groups I ever went to, standing by myself, didn't know anybody, and this guy comes up to me and starts talking to me, and he's like, I don't know, HVAC, or I don't know what he did, but he handed me his business card, and I literally like looked at his business card and was like, oh yeah, thank you, and I gave it back to him because I was like, well, I'm gonna call him. I don't need an HVAC.
It's hilarious.
So we all do stupid stuff, and of course he was nice enough to just, I live in Tennessee, they're so nice down here. Honey, that's for you to keep. You may not ever call me, but don't give them back.
Oh, that is good. That's hilarious. So we would say, Virginia, bless their heart, right?
Bless their heart.
Bless their heart. That is funny. You don't get that back.
It's for you to keep.
You know, Angela's not talking, but see, I remember when Angela used to be, because I don't know, I tell about what she used to, but Angela used to be a car dealership, right? Used to work at, was it BMW?
I'm a listener. Yeah, I was in the automotive industry for 20 years. I retired from it as a inventory manager for a BMW store. Yes.
It was just funny because she was, when we were working together, she would be in your, what, you'd be listening to video, like you had some crazy stories about listening to audio, right? When you were working.
Well, yeah, I would have to make sure where all my children were, all my cars were, and make sure they were running through all their processes. So I'd always have an earbud in my ear listening to your podcasts or visiting with you on your Fiverr Friday Lives. And that's when you would go, hello, Angela, right? Remember those?
And I always do that. If you ever watch it, the reason why, so people always ask, why do we always do that with Angela and only Angela? Because Angela would be in work and I knew she was at work. So I'd always mess with her because I knew she was sitting there at work watching my stuff when she should have been working. I always thought it was hilarious. That's why if you ever wonder, you might not even care or know, but that's why I do that. Some people ask, why do you do that with Angela? Like, well, that's why, because she was always listening to me when she shouldn't have been.
Because then I'd laugh, and then we had glass walls, then the hallways where the doors were, so people would just kind of poke their head around. What are you laughing at? You're such a weirdo.
Oh my goodness. All right, gang. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And if you ever want to reach out to us or have any questions, please feel free to. I mean, you know where to find. Well, I know you know where to find me, and at least if you can join their Facebook group if you haven't joined it yet, which is of course free. But thank you guys, Angela, Susan. Do you have anything else to say? It was really awesome.
No, this was great. I think we should do more.
Absolutely. Oh, our voiceover conference. I forgot to mention. If you guys know about our voiceover conference by any chance? No. Yes, some of you. Well,
holy smokes.
Well, we talked about Scott Brick. I mean, he's coming.
Scott Brick.
And Sean Pratt, Brent Allen Hagel. We've got some really awesome people. So it's October 14th through the 16th, and it's a 3-day event. It's digital. We're making the whole thing digital, so you can be anywhere where you live. We've got, like we said, we got Scott Britt coming. We've got CEOs from the big websites coming. We've got a lot of people. It's really gonna be great. Susan's got that really awesome panel set up for e-learning. We've got just a really great voiceover conference. Do we have someone with a link? Does someone have a link?
Linky link.
Where's the link? We had a link on it, but yeah, it's really, and it's we wanted to do something that was digital because the cost of going and traveling these days, I just can't even imagine the cost of it. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm definitely oh, here we go, I found it. Definitely excited about this one. I'm just gonna, did somebody put it in there? Let me see, share. All right, well, there it is. Sorry. All right, there you go. All right, gang. Oh, and if you are in the Academy, of course, if you don't know, you do get a discount. But anyway,
okay.
It is wonderful seeing you. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
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 Yes,
I'm going to audition.
Bye, everybody. You have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Goodbye, everybody, and thank you very much for
Goodbye.
joining us today.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thanks, Robert. Hey, don't have a wet fart.
That's right, Robert.
You know what really burns
When
my
in
butt?
doubt, go to the
A
restroom.
flame about that high.
A flame about that high. That's
Dolly
Oh,
Parton's line from the biggest little whorehouse in Texas.
yes, I love it. Good deal.
See you Tuesday, Robert.
Oh, see you then.
Bye. Let's see if I